Hello, Don in London. Oh, crikey. October the 2nd, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. I think I'll start again. No, I won't, because this is just the way it is. October the 2nd, my video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. And it's progress, not perfect today. So my videos tend to be a bit rough and ready. My addictive substance, alcoholic in recovery now. So some people say recovering alcoholic, some people say recovered alcoholic. And even if you ask the medical profession, and I remember it clearly, I had one GP, general practitioner, who said you're in recovery, and that's one day at a time. And I tend to go with that. And another GP in the same practice who I saw a bit younger said, no, you're recovered, you can do what you like now, can't you? So addiction is something which is misunderstood mainly, because if you haven't got it, you can't understand it, and why should you? To an extent, ignorance is bliss, but if you have a person who is an alcoholic or an addict in the family, there is no ignorance about the condition. There's a lot of hiding, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt about even knowing that they may be an alcoholic or an addict. And for us who are alcoholics and addicts, we can't explain why it is we are so driven to keep on trying to sort it out ourselves. Self-will, self-right, self-obsession, willpower will fail, simply because the nature of addiction is simple. We can't stop doing something which is harming us, and we try over and over again to stop it, but we can't. Not alone, it seems to me. So this is just my opinion. And for every person you ask about what it is to be an addict, you'll probably get a similar answer, but not quite the same, because everybody has life experience which tells them what they are like, what they are doing, and depending on our ignorance of our own situation, we may give half answers because we only know half the answer, but we can't tell you how we're going to stop it, on our own. And I'd always been a stubborn and defiant person, and when I started studying what it is to be an alcoholic, looking at my own behaviour, my own attitudes, and how similar they were to a lot of people, and yet unable to stop. I needed help. So medical people helped me, professional people helped me, people who are in the industry of trying to help people get sober. And they all suggested, gently or very loudly and emphatically, that the answer probably lay in a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. So the very last place I ever thought of going to when it came to my drinking behaviour, because AA people, I didn't know any, so I thought, and I couldn't understand why they would want to get together to discuss something so personal. But it seemed the only way to actually find out how to stop myself from taking another drink. I was watching a TV programme here in the UK called Casualty, and they had an addict who was desperate for a fix to try and make life possible by finding oblivion. So not about real life, in fact, but a pretty good portrayal about the condition. Nobody wants to treat an addict because they just are fairly untreatable in the conventional medical wisdom. Stability is needed. So once we try stop, we do need help from people who maybe can help us understand what it's like to live one day at a time and be in recovery. So the fellowship of AA, I rejected it to start with because it was full of people wanting to take away my best friend, which was alcohol. And then I found out that they'd all gone through the same sort of madness, if you like, trying to do it on their own. And sometimes, like me, going back into the addiction in early days, simply because life was just unbearable. It was just horrible, and it was empty and lonely. So fellowship in itself is part of the key for me, being with people who know and understand what it's like to be sober and don't judge each other. Well, not as much as we used to anyway. So what is AA and how does it help me? One of the things I must say, first of all, I don't speak for anyone in the fellowship. I only speak for me. And I don't speak for the fellowship either, because if I can't speak for the people in it, I can't speak for the fellowship either. And it's important that this is just one person's voice, my voice, about recovery and how it works in my experience. But it's the many voices in recovery which made it possible for me to have a voice at all. So in the fellowship, what you see is what you get on the day that you're there. Sometimes wonderful, sometimes middle of the road, and sometimes excruciatingly awful. And often it's in those excruciatingly awful moments that we may learn more about what it is to deal with the downside of life without a drink or without a substance. So on this card here is the AA Preamble. You can't see it, but my camera's not that good, or the lighting isn't that good. And inside it's got something called the 12 steps and 12 traditions on it, and on the back it has a little prayer, an exhortation to the good of life. AA is not a religious organisation, but people do talk about God in it, simply because a higher power is part of the process of learning about recovery. Something bigger than us as single individuals is helping us. So my higher power when I first got to AA was the wisdom of the people around me. And once I learned about the wisdom of the people in recovery, I could then hear the wisdom of everyone that I meet. So my ears started to work, my senses started to work again. But in the beginning, there was an enormous gap and an enormous void and emptiness and fear and insomnia. Couldn't sleep. And even today, insomnia is just part of who I am. So I don't throw or deny what's going on for me away. I don't try and cover it up. Secrets will keep me stuck in the malady or the downside of life. So if I come along to a meeting or I just see people in the street and they say, "How are you?" I'm more likely to give them some evidence of good or bad, or a bit of both. It's a bit like the curate's egg. The curate, when asked, "How is your egg, Mr. Curate?" he said, "It's good in parts." And the egg, of course, was bad. So an optimist, if you like, good in parts. In fellowship we share the truth. Good bits, bad bits, indifferent bits, or just no bits at all. Nothing to say, and full of anger, or maybe just full of emptiness to start with. And then anger, resentment, denial, all those things come to the fore because they are part of recovery. And we embrace what we are and who we are on the day, rather than trying to push ourselves into being something we're not. So open, honest and willing to live life. Now the AA Preamble. Followed by some thoughts from the fellowship in a book, daily reflections, and I'll talk about that in a moment, and then some reflections I've come to over the years of doing these videos. So the AA Preamble, with a bit thrown in by me. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it's about helping each other on the road of recovery. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking, and that's it. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. It doesn't mean you have to have stopped already, because I was terrible. The newcomer, the most belligerent one that's sitting at the back, saying it's all right for you at the front. But what about me? And walking away and going to the market, especially on a Sunday, when the licensing hours allowed me to go drink again, or get some more vodka, which is where I got to. Drink the afternoon away, go to another meeting, and sound off again. What a bunch of losers you lot are. Not realising I was probably the biggest loser in the room. I'd lost my identity, and I was lost in oblivion. So the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop, and the more hardened case you are, the more glorious each new day can be as we learn about sobriety. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. Before this, yes, membership, a desire to stop, and there are no laws, rules or regulations to violate. There are simply 12 suggestions for keeping well, the steps, and 12 traditions around unity, service and recovery, and they are suggestions. They are not laws, they are not written in tablets of stone, but they give us a guide, if you like, how to hold ourselves together as a fellowship and how to work the 12-step program, or to practice these principles in all our affairs. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. The gate is open, the door is open to everyone. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, so those who can spare a little money to help pay for rent, tea, coffee and literature, and a very basic administration structure. But there are no leaders in AA. We are all trusted servants. There are a few people employed to keep the telephone and all the other stuff going. But it's a very lean organisation, never about money, prudent reserve only. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes, but you can guarantee that every single person in AA has a belief system, an understanding of what works for them, and many affiliations for and against, and they may be for and against causes as well, and we hear everybody's story around that, part of which is why anonymity is so important. We share the truth of who we are, so you may be persuaded to another person's point of view on anything, but it's not dogmatic, and it's not about being part of a cult, unless you want it to be like that. And you can want it to be like that for two reasons. First, you don't want to belong to anything, which is where I was coming from, and if you want to be involved with some strident people who have joys of recovery and a brand of no fear, then there are those people as well. So it's what you make of it, but the whole point of the program is this. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And sometimes people are going to tread on your toes, and sometimes people are going to suggest things which are about their opinion and judgment about life and their religious beliefs as well. So you can take it or leave it, and if people are trying to impose or stamp something on you, tell them to bugger off and mind their own business, or rather say, I need bugger off out of your company and mind my own business, because what you're talking about is not for me. That's the beauty of AA. You can be whatever you want to be as you grow into sobriety. You get your head back, your sanity back, or to a degree, and you can do and be as life offers, life on life's terms, the freedom to choose what is available to you. But it's not about fantasy. It's not about fantasy at all. It's about open, honest, willing to live just for today, sober, so the rest of life can happen. And part of that process, like this book, Daily Reflections, gives you a reading per day, and a daily reflection for each day of the year. There are 12 steps, so each step is covered in this book, one a month, and so are the traditions. And October is about step 10, doing spot check inventories of what's going on with this. How am I feeling, why, and what can I do? And what's my situation right now? And am I getting into a disturbing situation or a good situation, which might be hard work, but it's worth it to do it? And that's where sober starts every day for me. How am I feeling, why, and what can I do? So this morning I had a rotten headache because my blood sugars went low last night. I'm type 1 diabetic, courtesy of living long enough to get it, in recovery. And when blood sugars go really low, I get a bit scared and fearful. My heart starts to beat faster and I can feel myself going unconscious. So my natural reaction is get the runny honey out and eat some quick to get my sugars out. And I was tired and exhausted last night, which is unusual for me. Part of the hypo does that, a hypoglycemic low blood sugar event. And I fell asleep or fell unconscious, not sure which way round it was, but the rotten headache was caused by a high blood sugar this morning and a rather large dose of insulin to stop the headache. And now I feel a lot better. So, step 10 in October, the daily reflections. I'm trying to make it as it is for me. It just is, it's just the way it is. AA daily reflections for today, plus then some of my stuff. AA daily reflection, the acid test. As we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life, but when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living to practical use, day by day, in fair weather or foul. Then comes the acid test. Can we stay sober, keep in emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? So that's the acid test. So if you imagine, in the fellowship you learn about the first 9 steps, and you go at your own pace, progress. It's never perfect, and it's hard work, because it starts with step 1. Admitted I was powerless over alcohol, and life was unmanageable as I was sitting on a park bench, not wanting to talk to anyone. Came to believe that a higher power greater than me could restore me to sanity. That's step 2. And the higher power for me has always been around truth, love and wisdom. A spiritual connection to the immediate moment of now. So drinking, living on a park bench was not doing me any good. It was madness, because I was so fearful of judgment of others. But I did have to ask for help, and I knew where the help was, even though I didn't like the idea of it. And then in step 3 it was let go all the old attitudes and behaviour and let in the new attitudes and behaviour, open, honest and willing to give it a go. Let go and let God, let go and let a higher power, let go of being right, let go of judging myself and standing almost like behind myself, listening to what was good for me, rather than saying, actually this is a good way forward. And it took a while. So step 1, power. Step 2, restoring myself to sanity. No, being restored to sanity with the help of powers greater than me, the wisdom of the universe and the wisdom of people who knew about sobriety. Let go, let good happen. So first 3 steps. Let go, let God is your belief system. Whatever the higher power is, know that wisdom coming in is probably better than the wisdom that got us sitting on a park bench all alone, or wherever it was. Then a life story, doing a life story, what worked and what didn't work, what made me angry and resentful, what made me kick off and drink more, what made me able to live life to the good. So life stories, assets and liabilities, and then sharing it with another person. In step 5, God and another person, or saying, please help me, through understanding where I've got to. And then step 6, looking at what was getting in the way, my defects of character, which are under the headings of fear, putting on a brave face, and my ego covering up shame and guilt about inadequacies. So step 7, looking for courage, faith and confidence, to look at what freedoms I have to grow, progress, freedom to choose in the moment of now, given my real life situation. So 6, about what tips me into fear. 7, step 7, what tips me into enough courage and faith to keep on going. And then in step 8, made a list of people I'd harmed and be willing to make those amends. Step 9, in consultation with others, make the amends and restitution without doing further harm to other people. And the promise after that is it's clearing the wreckage of the past, and then getting into step 10, spot inventories, what's going on right now, good, bad, indifferent, what challenges are face to face, what could undermine me, my fear, what can help me, a bit of faith and courage, to do the right thing, whatever it happens to be, learning from others what the right thing might be. But it's in the moment. Step 10 works now. It's in the moment of now. So that's the acid test. And it goes on to say about the acid test. And this comes from the big book as well, or based on the big book, which is behind me. It's behind me. See the telephone on the top? It's the book directly down below, the blue one, next to the purple one. That's the big book of AA, which I do read. I know the promises are being fulfilled in my life, but I want to maintain and develop them by daily application of step 10. I've learned through this step that if I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. The other person may be wrong too, but I can only deal with my feelings. And don't forget, the fellowship program is about emotional and spiritual well-being. Emotional, knowing what our feelings are, and the spiritual aspect, or the spiritual angle, is coping. As a cleric, a very respected cleric once said, when asked what is spiritual, it's the ability to cope with now. So if we know what our feelings are and what's going on now, I can only deal with my feelings, so I'm not trying to correct anybody else. When I'm hurt or upset, I have to continually look for the cause in me, and then I have to admit and correct my mistakes. It isn't easy, but as long as I know I am progressing spiritually, I know that I can mark my effort up as a job well done. I found that pain is a friend. It lets me know there is something wrong with my emotions. But actually, there's nothing wrong with the feelings. It's what we do next where the wrongness can happen, which is to blame the rest of the world for the wrongness inside me. You may have the opportunity for justifiable anger, but what do you do about it? And it's just us. It's not their behaviour. We can't do anything about their behaviour, because that's just the way they are. We may influence them by what we do next, which is to the good of living. So it's being open, honest and willing to change. Look at the bit in me which is aggravating me, and if anger comes up, which it will from time to time, I'm a human being with all those feelings inside me. It's not so much correcting the feeling, but it's looking at what can happen, to good or bad, if I react adversely based on that bad feeling inside me. It's not necessarily bad, actually. A bad feeling is good because it's telling me something's not right. So it's not correction of the feeling, because we can't change the feelings, in my opinion, until we put some action in. And that requires thinking as well. So feeling always, and I know this might be quite challenging to understand, our mood and our feelings guide our thinking. So we think next. So if we're really angry, we can retaliate, or we can say, hang on a minute, I'm angry and it's disturbing me. I need to stand back long enough to respond. And sometimes we have to withdraw for a bit to do that. So it's my mistakes. It isn't easy, but as long as I know that I am progressing spiritually, that's living in the moment and coping with it, I know that I can mark my effort up as a job well done. I found that pain is a friend. It lets me know there is something wrong with my emotions. So it tells me there is something wrong, and my emotions are telling me so. Just a physical pain lets me know there is something wrong with my body. When I take the appropriate action through the 12 steps, the pain gradually goes away. And the reason why it goes away is, if I am making progress and not perfect, and I get angry, then of course people around me will be doing exactly the same thing. But the 12 steps gives me the opportunity to look at my behaviour. And the big danger with the 12-step program is that we get good at analysing ourselves and understanding what's disturbing us, which means that we can be need to be a bit careful, because the 12 steps are a perfect way of judging other people's behaviour. And one of the things in step 8 and step 9 is clearing away the wreckage of the past and sweeping our side of the street clean, not digging up the other side of the street where other people live, behave and act. And that's hard to do, because if we have a set of tools which is helping us work to the good of what's next, We can be very judgmental if we're angry, or if we're just simply wanting to do some good. We may suggest to other people something which is out of their experience, that is self-appraisal, looking at their own behaviour. And if you do that and challenge their situation, you may find that the retaliation is not only in words, it could be physical. People don't like to be undermined. So the best you can do is say, listen, I'm feeling angry in this situation, I don't feel right, and can we try and work it out? I don't feel right, I'm owning my feelings. And if they have the same problem, they don't feel right either. They may say so, or they may just say, get out of my way. And the answer is absolutely. There's no point in trying to challenge sometimes a point of view. We are powerless over people, places and things, but we have the opportunity in our own way to look at step one, powerless over people, places and things, that I have good choices today, which is to back off or to challenge if required. And that's a judgment call in the moment of now. So there are so many instances and evidence of what we can and cannot do, the wisdom we learn as we go along. It's a bit of a trouble thing. There is no fixed point, really, except to be sober first, and then be open, honest and willing to change, make good choices based on what is in front of us. And I like that. I like it a lot. Keeps me out of trouble, and trouble which I can't do anything about for other people, because they'll go and do it again somewhere else. But maybe in time they will find their way forward which works. Now for me, this morning I've been taking photographs, and photography is something I enjoy. Making progress, certainly not professional, but just an amateur. So when I'm looking at people, and it was great yesterday, absolutely brilliant hot sunshine, a heat wave, October the 1st, very unusual, but it brought out the best in some people. And there was, in the Duke of York Square in Chelsea, there was a 21st birthday party for a toy shop called Trotters. So there were lots of family about. I took lots of family type photos, and some are funny and some are sad. And one of the things I know, every line caused by age, every scratch, every scar, a lifetime etched into innocence, because we did start innocent somehow, and then life is etched on our faces. Every ding, every dent of experience is evidence and proof of life. Beautiful to behold, we wear our history with grace in recovery. No need to hide who we are today. And I see that in the faces of so many people. Sometimes it's covering up, and sometimes a candid shot shows the beauty of the person. No matter how wrinkled by age, there is some grace in that. The candid shot which shows the truth of who we are. No wonder some people don't like to be portrayed. But for me, anyway, that's just me. I love taking photos of people. I guess it's because I love people. I don't always like the way they behave, so I can love people and hate their behaviour, or love people and love their behaviour. In the moment of now, it's just the way it is. So I love taking photos. My next thought this morning: a drinking career of 35 years long, and in work 35 years of saying yes. I always said yes to the problem stuff. I always said yes to troubleshooting. So yes, asked and answered in work. Successful, and when I stopped drinking, everything stopped. Back in the day, a void and a feeling of emptiness when I stopped drinking. And I stopped drinking for a year or two, just off my own bat, because the depression had come in. And I realised that my career was always going to be more of the same. Mott's law, more of the same. No matter what job it was the same old. And that was emptiness inside me, because I had no family, I had no partner. Any partner with me would have realised that I was driven to try and be perfect. So the girl in my life would find it a struggle to realise what was going on with me. And I didn't know what was going on with me, because I just didn't want to be found out. So it was hard to love, be loved and useful. But work, career, always gave me a direction. So the harder it was, the more I went for it. The more difficult it was, the more I thought I would be useful. I'm looking back in hindsight. Back then in the day, I wasn't sure what I was doing. I always used to say yes to challenges, because that's what I thought we ought to do. And then when the challenge was always going to be the same in the different careers, I fell to pieces. So, and the emptiness was desolate then. Now, more truth, love and wisdom flows in, an honest, open and willing outlook today. So I needed, in sobriety, to have emptiness. I didn't like it at first, because I was frightened of life. I was frightened of what I might do next. I was frightened of what people might do to me. I was frightened and paranoid that somebody was looking over my shoulder and saying, "You're a failure." And of course it was me who was saying that to myself. These days I'm making progress. I'm not a failure. And if I don't know something, and if anybody ever says to me, "At your age you ought to know that," and I say, "Well, it's beyond my experience and it never happened to me, so this is new, so I can learn." Interestingly enough, there is a series on called Come Dancing, and if you watch it carefully you will find people in that competition of, I guess, trying to be number one dancer after 3 months. There are some people in there who are really in it to learn because they just love the idea of dancing. And there are some in there who are absolutely competitive, which is getting in the way of their learning. Because if the competition is show no fear, show no, you're putting up a barrier to learning. And all the teachers, each person has a teacher, all the teachers know this. You have to get over the competitive bit to get down to basic learning, where it's horribly painful. And dancing and learning how to dance, God, I wish I had. In my younger days, just to say, a very middle-aged lady, when I was about 17 or 18 and working for a retailer, there was a dance and a band playing, and she picked me out and said, "Come dance with me," like come dancing. And I was whisked around the floor by this very graceful lady, and I was in heaven. It's a bit like Astaire and Rogers, you know, the heaven one. Anyway, that was the first and last time I ever danced like in Come Dancing. But I have to say that middle-aged lady gave me the confidence to actually start dancing with the girls around me, and that was fun. And she said, "You'll get better at that." I did. But it led to all sorts of naughty things going on, which I loved at the time. So, previous years, just briefly. October the 2nd last year. Hurt and happiness all can happen in the moment, so we can feel happy and hurt at the same time. Everything is going on. One moment serenity, the next memories remind us of old times, and we wonder when the spinning head will slow down. As the mountain of history has shaped us, we take it step by step today, and we find more level ground as we progress. So those first 9 steps, if you like, step 1 to step 9, clearing the wreckage of the past, often we ignored what was going on for us, so we had a mountain of problems which we hadn't looked at, and a mountain of attitudes and behaviour which were not getting any smaller. So the steps helped me sort out my life story, share it, find out where I could feel fear and where I could feel courage and faith, admit my faults, list them, be willing to make amends, and make the amends and restitution as one can. That's what the past is all about. Clearing that wreckage of the past means that I'm back on level ground to an extent, but that mountain can reappear if I don't do spot check inventories, and it will build and build again until the dam breaks and I say, "I can't stand it, I've got to do another step 4. Part of my life story is impeding my progress. But I won't have to do that if I do spot check inventories or a step 10 with a bit of gratitude. Yeah, it works somehow, but it's taken me a while to learn it, and it's not easy, because it's those secrets which we don't want to tell about, which will keep us stuck. Going on, I do go on, don't I? Learning a new approach to our living, acceptance of life the way it is, drowning out the inner voice which is tormented by a want to fix, is a difficult thing. It is difficult for anyone open, honest and willing to change. We feel life in the moment without filters. Emotions are embraced rather than pushed away, and they're understood. We feel, we think and we respond to this day, if we're lucky, and we don't react and get angry and frustrated and fed up. So you can say, actually, I'm learning in this. You don't have to say it to the person you're with, guess what, this is a learning experience for me, unless it's appropriate to say that. I've never had to do this before. I'm looking at what's making me feel angry. It's not you, it's me I've got to sort out. I promise you, changing our outlook and our way of living is difficult at first. So the absolute promise of recovery is, it's difficult, just as life is. But life is difficult. And if we're sober, even though it's difficult, we just accept it's difficult, and then we find the joy and the sadness in that scenario. We need to change, and acceptance is the answer. And this is the page 417 in the 4th edition and page 449 in the 3rd edition, where it is the acceptance bit. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing or situation, some fact of my life, unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place or thing or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober, unless I accept life completely on life's terms, just the way it is. I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world, as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. And for me that does fit in with step 10. It saved my life to realise it's not about me changing the world, it's about me changing me and my attitudes, based on action, the action of doing the 12-step program, which provide me with life principles in living, how to be open, honest and willing, knowing that if I feel secretive about something and don't share about it in the fellowship, or with people who have become trusted friends, not so much sponsors these days. Sponsorship is a thing for the 12 steps, definitely. But I'm living the steps now, and I'm living step 10, 11, 12, particularly in the moment of now, today. And that acceptance bit, it's me I can do something about, and stop looking at the world and saying, what have I done to deserve this? Especially when I was on that park bench, with no way out on my own, except oblivion and an early death. So, life goes on. More chronic conditions, acceptance of them, embracing them and the feelings they create in me, and then dealing and living life. What would I do without my fellowship friends? I guess a lot of torment could come back into my life. But if I keep sober as the first principle, so the rest of my life can work, how to love, be loved back, useful, and listen to truth, love and wisdom from other people, the higher power working through them. I don't contest or understand anything to do with other people's personal beliefs, whether you're agnostic, atheist or believer, or simply operating to good conscience, and you are listening to the world and the wisdom in it. That one word, God, is no longer an issue for me, and I hope it's not an issue for you. Doesn't matter whether it does, it matters greatly. I was going to discard it then. The word God matters greatly, whether you believe, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whether you operate to good conscience. It's not the word that's important, it's the actions that we do based on our belief system. And for me it's open, honest, willing, truth, love and wisdom, unity, service and recovery, to the good of living and what is possible and not possible today. And the serenity prayer pulls me up sharp. Can do, can't do. What I can do, change me and my attitudes. What I can't do, I can't change you and your attitudes. That's your job. Nothing to do with me. What's going on in here is how you wish it to work for you. And that's what the 12 steps do. Give you back your life. Freedom to choose. So whatever you do next is your responsibility, as is mine. And that serenity prayer, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. The wisdom keeps on changing as each situation changes. So it works timelessly, and this is important, it works in all situations. And this is it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. For me, always in the imperfectly perfect moment of now, and just for today.